So one of the big questions, and it's one of the reasons people reach out to us, is trying to figure out what the real estate likes, what's a home like, breaking it down into two different things, prices and area. So prices and areas around San Diego can vary widely. It's a pretty big area where you have a ton of different cities. You have a ton of different areas within different cities. Even the city of San Diego has a bunch of different areas within there. So there's a ton of different spots and a ton of different areas and price points that you could potentially live in. But breaking it down to the basics, most people are living within the first third of San Diego County. We broke this all down in our map style video, so we'll have a link to that up there as well. But if you wanna go check that out, breaking down, it's about 45 minutes, breaking down all of San Diego, all these different areas. But a lot of people are living in that first coastal / inland. We have mountains and deserts too. Not too many people are living out there. There is also kind of four main areas of San Diego. You have Central San Diego, which is included the city of San Diego, areas that you've probably heard of like La Jolla's, North Parks, some walkable areas within there. You have East County, which is some of the more affordable areas here in San Diego, where you have Santee's, El Cajones, Lemon Groves, those kind of areas. As you go south, you have South Bay or South County. Chula Vista is like the bulk of that. It's the second biggest city right here in San Diego. I think it's about 230,000, somewhere in there. And then North County, which includes a lot of different areas, a lot of different vibes. That's where we're talking about the Carlsbads and San Marcos and Vista and all of those surrounding cities in there. So really different areas, and everyone, we're gonna get into it in a little later, kind of what one question that people do ask about these different cities. But yeah, there's a lot of different spots here.
So we found that typically people are kind of looking for that standard detached house, 3 to 4 bedrooms, yard, good schools. And if that's not your criteria, obviously reach out. There are a lot of other options. So this is detached houses. You're kind of looking in that 900,000 to 1.2 million is kind of the starter spot for detached houses here in San Diego. There's a couple of spots where you're gonna get a little bit under that. But for the most part, this is kind of the wheelhouse, and you're gonna find this kind of in Oceanside. Definitely a lot of opportunity like in East County, like Chris mentioned earlier. And then that next price point, 1.2 to 1.5, you're gonna find in San Marcos. You're gonna find in that kind of central area of San Diego, like actual San Diego, where it's that Claremont area, kind of in that spot. And then that 1.5 to 2 million, you're gonna find kind of in the same size of house and everything in Carlsbad, and kind of the more coastal San Diego area, maybe a little bit of Pacific Beach, kind of some of those areas down there.
Another question about San Diego is, how's the market? And this is gonna be different depending on when you're watching this, and more importantly, when you're moving out here. So it's, you know, our price is going up, our price is going down. I'll give you the current, but really it's could change in 6 months, it could change in 3 months, it's gonna vary. But right now here in San Diego, we are seeing kind of a sideways move in home prices, and it really, like past few years, right? It was crazy appreciation. Now from last year to this year, we're sitting in that standard, you know, 4 to 6% price appreciation in different areas throughout San Diego. And that's what you're generally gonna find here. You're not gonna find home prices going down too often. How they do work is throughout the year, as you're going from January, we're gonna peak out at home prices and home activity and buyers out there. Also the most home sellers out there. So it's kind of, if you're trying to find a time with the most homes on the market, you're gonna be looking in that spring, kind of going into summertime, where you're finding the most sellers out there, but also you're gonna find some more competition because a lot of people, they see more homes. This is also the time you're getting done with school. People are coming out here. That's a lot of time that people do relocate. They want to get here, get moved in, get settled in before the next school year. When is school year? August. End of August. And there's a bunch of different school districts. So that exact date's gonna be a little bit different. I should know, I got 2 kids as well. So I don't know why I'm asking him, but we did just, you know, went through all that after summer. But nonetheless, that's when a lot of people are moving out here. And that's when the prices are gonna be highest. As you go towards the end of the year, where we're sitting right now, December, you're gonna see the least amount of activity of homes, but also prices tend to go down because the sellers who are selling right now are motivated, but there's also the limited buyer pool. A lot of people are doing holidays. We were just out at Florida for Thanksgiving. You know, you have, you know, Christmases, the Hanukkahs and New Year's and all that kind of stuff coming up. It does go vary year to year, but as far as home prices going up or down, typically, yes, they're going up here in San Diego, besides when we had the market crash, you know, 2008 through 2010, 12-ish, somewhere in there. Right now, it's really good because we're not in a crazy appreciation market. So there's a little more opportunity for you as a buyer out there.
Next up is buy now or rent first. This is a question we get asked pretty much every time we jump on an initial Zoom call, just because people are trying to feel out. Sometimes it's a big move. You're moving across country. You're moving to an area that you don't know that well. So it's different for everybody. If you are really trying to feel out where you need to be, where you want to be, and you don't have, it's a broad search right now, renting is a great idea. Renting, kind of feeling out different neighborhoods. Obviously trying to rent in one of the neighborhoods you're thinking about is a good idea, and just kind of seeing if it's for you.
Yeah, if you're moving here and you want to be in Carlsbad, don't go rent in downtown San Diego. Different worlds, you're gonna have different lifestyles. We'll get into that in a little bit down here and some other questions people are asking.
Yeah, and a lot of that is, it's just a lot of folks, we've helped both. Obviously, we've helped a lot of people that have rented, kind of felt out the area, taken their time kind of finding what they want, where we've also helped people that are buying remotely, sight unseen, or coming out for a couple weeks and looking at properties. So we've helped everybody. So it really just depends on how well you know the areas that you want to move to. After we're done filming right now, I'm going to meet a new client that is probably going to rent for a year and just kind of feel out areas. There's a few different cities that they're thinking about. So we're going to help them kind of feel out what those best cities for them are.
And once you do, let's say you do decide to rent, and you're on the you signed a 12-month lease or whatever, and you kind of start getting the itch. You're like, okay, I think we have a good feeling for the area. I think we're, gonna start looking a little bit more. You're not necessarily locked into that lease. We've had people who do move out, and maybe they're 6 months, and they figure out, okay, we figure out where we want to live. The time's right. It's time to move. We need to get out of where we're renting right now. So they do make the move. There are ways to get out of that. You're not necessarily stuck in there where you have to, stay that entire time, look through your lease. Obviously, they're all going to be a little bit different, but it is opportunity where you can still look during that time. Sometimes too, we've had people move out and just do Airbnbs for, 1, 2, 3 months. And I know that's a little bit longer, but if you go on those sites, you're going to find, you potentially get a little discount if you are renting, 30 days or longer and whatnot. So if you think midterm, there's other solutions for that too.
If you're gonna do the short term though, think about timing. Chris mentioned earlier that this time of year, we're in fall, winter, almost winter, here in December of 2024. The winter time is not the best time. There's not a ton to look at. So you might get to see, depending on how tight your criteria is, you might be seeing a house a week come on the market, where if you're coming out here and renting short term, spring would be great. You're gonna have a lot more options. It's gonna be way easier to get into a house kind of in that 30 to 60 day range.
And one thing a lot of people are moving out here for is the beaches. They wanna be close to the beaches. Where are the areas that they can live within 15 minutes of the beaches? There's a lot of different areas. There's miles and miles of coastline throughout San Diego. I think 70 plus miles. So there's plenty of beaches to go to, plenty of areas to go to, but what areas can you live 15 minutes? It really comes down to, there are a lot of areas, but it comes down to that price point. If you want some of the price points we were just talking about, you're probably gonna be 20, 25 minutes from the beach. As you go closer to the beach, that's where price points go up. So if your budget is within that, yeah, you could definitely be 15 minutes from the beach. We also have clients who are looking a little bit below those numbers, kind of probably that mid-range, 1.2 to 1.5. Then they do want to be super close to the beach. In that capacity, you are looking at some condos. And there's some really good areas for condos, like literally pretty much on the beach or on bluffs overlooking the beach. So you might have stairs going down to the beach. Some areas you're gonna have, direct access, but there are some areas, but then you go from, that single family home to condo, and we'll cover that in another question because that's a very big question people ask too. When you're looking on a map, add some time to that too, because if you're looking, let's say your location you're going to Tamarack Beach over in Carlsbad, it's gonna give you a time, but there's gonna be going down there, you're parking, unloading the car. Like we went down there for a party. One of my kids had a little birthday party down there, or we're going to his friend's birthday party. And it was in that Tamarack area of Carlsbad. You go down, there's parking right on the beach, but it's a weekend, super packed. So I had to drop off the kids, drop off the family. They all went, I had to park back in the neighborhood, about a 10-minute walk down. So if I was going to the beach, it probably would have been like 40 minutes to get to the beach. So just keep that in mind.
And just to kind of give you an idea, Chris kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but if you're looking for a detached house within that 15 minutes to the beach, you're looking close to that $2 million price point up and down the San Diego coast. Obviously, there's little outliers here and there. That brings us to our next point, which is condo versus townhouse versus single family house. Obviously, there are a lot of options with all these. There are areas, though, where some of these are more common, some are a little less common. For instance, condos, you can find a ton of them in downtown San Diego. You can find a lot of them up and down the coast in kind of some of those coastal cities like La Jolla, Solana Beach. They have a ton of condo options. As you head north a little bit, you're finding a little bit more of newer development where you have townhomes, where we see a lot of either 2 or 3 story style townhomes that are just, it can be either any size buildings, but where you have a garage, maybe you have a little entryway in the bottom floor and then living space on the second floor and bedrooms upstairs.
And the reason we differentiated condos versus townhomes, even though on the tax record it's going to show the same thing, but when we're thinking condos, it's more your traditional, one floor you're going, there's somebody above, somebody below, maybe left and right. That's where you're seeing big buildings, all that kind of stuff. When we're thinking townhomes and the style of townhomes you're gonna find out here in San Diego, you might be sharing a wall or two as well, but typically there's nobody above or below you. So it's, vertical living, but you also get maybe a little bit of a patio, a little bit of a backyard. And there's certain areas too that have more than a patio where it's like a decent, not huge backyard, but a little bit of area to run around in, not single family, which we'll get into here in a sec, but it's totally different style than that condo. It kind of it's between that condo living and the single family home living.
And as for single family homes, so detached houses, there's obviously these types of houses all across San Diego County, but it's kind of what you're looking for. We don't have a ton of old houses. So 60s is kind of the benchmark for old houses here in San Diego. There are parts of like Metro San Diego that have really old houses, like built in the 20s and 30s, but that's few and far between, especially now with real estate prices where they're at. We've seen a lot of those kind of get rebuilt or added onto, so they don't quite have that same allure for the kind of historic looking house. But as you head kind of north and east, you get a lot more of these like master plan communities. So newer, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Even in the last 10 years, there are a few of those communities as well. So you're finding as you go out in the suburbs away from the metro area, you're finding a lot more of that newer suburban detached house.
One thing about San Diego, we don't have a ton of brand new construction. You're gonna find little developments here and there with a few hundred houses, but as with other agents, we're on calls with other agents a lot of times, kind of figure out what's going on, what they're doing, what they're up to. Some of their areas have these huge master developments where you have hundreds or thousands of homes going on there. That's not really the case here in San Diego. A lot of the master plan communities or developments are like infill. So it's all built around, maybe you have a few acre lot here that's been here forever that used to be, growing grounds, greenhouses, that kind of stuff. Finally, they're putting some sort of development in there. We've seen a few of those, like in Encinitas, there's one called Fox Point Farms right here. Over in area of San Marcos called North City. That's probably one of the biggest developments where they have Mission Circle, which is already built out. So it was like 2022-ish, but the whole hill up there is all graded, ready to go. They're currently starting to, the plans are in the works to build some more residential, some more commercial out there. That's like one of the bigger developments. There's some other ones in North San Marcos. You're gonna find some in the Santees and El Cones and those sort of spaces as well. Chula Vista, the eastern portion of Chula Vista, a lot of that is newer style or newer-ish master plan communities like 2000s and above. But other than that, you're not gonna find these huge master plan communities with great amenities, with just a ton going on there. There's a few here and there, but not too much. Another question that we're getting asked a lot of times is, what's the vibe like in different areas? And maybe that's because we say vibe a lot on this, on this channel where we're like, every area has different vibes. The vibe of this, I don't know if it's just a San Diego thing, but how's it feel? How's the community? What's it like? Every different area, even, like city to city. I'm focused on a part of San Diego here where we talk a lot about, and you're gonna find even neighboring cities, Oceanside, Carlsbad, just to the south, totally different vibes. They're both beach cities, Oceanside, yeah, it goes inland quite a ways, but different vibes. Carlsbad to Encinitas, more similar, but still different. As you go inland into San Marcos, different vibes. That's why a lot of these videos that we make are, you know, Carlsbad versus Encinitas, because not only different vibes, they're different price points, even just different cities right next to each other.
I think the consensus, just as a San Diego vibe, is it's a lot more laid back than a lot of places people are coming from. And we've helped a lot of people from the Bay Area that say the same thing. We've helped a ton of people from the East Coast that get here and they're shocked at how friendly everybody is. People holding doors open. We have just a slower pace of life, not quite island time, but right on the border, where it's just not as hustle and bustle, not a ton of rush. And that's kind of what lends to that kind of casual, happy vibe here in San Diego. Another good question we get is, I've heard insurance is tough to get in California. It has gotten tougher. It's obviously very possible to get insurance. It's become a little bit more expensive, and it's become just a little bit more of a chore to get. We've had a ton of clients though move out, have no issues, just paying a little bit more. And the reason that they're paying a little bit more is a lot of the big insurance companies have pulled out of California. And so it is come to just kind of a smaller pool of insurance companies that have raised rates a little bit. And a big reason for this is fires. And this is really our big risk here in San Diego is wildfires. There are obviously areas where they're more susceptible to this. We have resources also to be able to show you like where the high fire zones are, where it's going to be a little bit harder or more expensive to get fire insurance, which is part of your homeowner's insurance policy. And so we can kind of help you down that line. The other thing people ask about is earthquake insurance. A little less common here in San Diego than it is, say, in the Bay Area or LA, where you have major fault lines going through the city. We haven't had a major earthquake here in a long time, but you never know.
One of the videos I just made, I brought up the map of San Diego fault lines, and there's throughout all of San Diego. A lot of them are in that mountain zone, so a little bit on the eastern portion of San Diego, not necessarily where everybody's living. And some of the bigger earthquakes, there was one kind of close to downtown, but it was like in the 1900s or something like that. The other big ones, 6 point something, those were a little bit further east. Yes, there's fault lines through all of San Diego, but the major ones are pushed off a little bit. Another question is, where are the jobs? A lot of people who are reaching out are actually moving out here because maybe their business is out here or their company that they work for is out here. The more important question is, how far is my commute gonna be? Because San Diego, there's a few different hubs of job areas where you have like Sorrento Valley, you have Kearny Mesa, you have up in Carlsbad, there's a little hub up in Rancho Bernardo. Every little city is gonna have little small hubs. But getting into how far am I going to have to go to my job? If I'm working in Sorrento Valley, can I live in North County? If I'm working in downtown, can I live in Santee? And the answer is yeah. I think one of the recent videos, actually the map video, I'm gonna call back to that one because it ties into all this. I go through commutes from Santee to the Naval Station in downtown San Diego because we had a client who reached out and they want to live out there for affordability and see how far that was. Now, when you're living up in the northern section of San Diego, where you get into like the Vistas, northern Oceanside, some of those areas that are a little bit further out there, if you're going downtown, it could take 45, it could take an hour. We'll bring up some maps here to show you live times, but it could be quite a trek. So having that in mind, like my wife used to work, we live in Encinitas now, used to live down in Pacific Beach. So she used to work in kind of central San Diego. So her drive from Pacific Beach to her job was like 15 minutes. When she moved up here, the distance wasn't too bad. Encinitas to, it was kind of right around Balboa Park. It wasn't too bad. But once you get into the work days and the drive times, especially if you're crossing over certain freeways where a lot of the freeways meet, like the Golden Triangle, 805, the 5, and the 52, that whole area. Anytime freeways are meeting and combining, tons of traffic. So her drive home was like an hour. So it was just like, she was over it. That's what it came down to. She quit that, she works somewhere else now. But it's like, look at it at different times and really think, am I going to be okay with this drive every day? Maybe you like that drive time. Maybe you're like throwing a podcast, just enjoy that drive, enjoy that time, put down your windows because it's, going to be not always warm, but it's going to be San Diego weather a lot of the times. We're going to get into weather here in a little bit and how it's not always that.
I recently ran into one of our subscribers. Hey, John, how's it going? And he described his commute. So he lives in San Marcos and he commutes up to Orange County, and it's kind of a reverse commute. We don't see it a ton, but it's kind of against the traffic. So you're not driving into the teeth of it. You're kind of driving while everybody's stopped on the other side. You're just cruising up north in the morning and then cruising down south in the afternoon. So driving up there is an option. We have clients that we've helped that work in San Clemente. So there's definitely some opportunity there if you're looking, especially kind of that southern part of Orange County. It's not that bad of a commute. Another big question we get is, are there walkable areas of San Diego? Not really. There are a couple of, obviously, downtown San Diego, some of the kind of villages of some of the cities going up. Those are walkable, but San Diego as a whole has a ton of terrain. So you've got a lot of mountains, you got a lot of hills. Everything's going to be a grade. It's that old joke that grandparents tell, you're walking uphill both ways to school. It is a lot of hills, so that's just something that kind of takes away from that walkability. There are kind of communities that have been built around. So Bressi Ranch is one that comes to mind, where there are sections of that are walkable. But as soon as you get down the hill a little bit, you're not walking to Trader Joe's with, and walking home with 10 bags. So there's spots that are walkable, but for the most part, San Diego as a whole is not a hugely walkable city.
And we've made other videos on the walkable areas of San Diego, and how we framed it is it walkable to a park? Is it walkable to something close by, maybe a trail? You'll find a lot of those different areas that are walkable to there. You're not finding too many, except like Cassie mentioned, like downtown, the downtown strips. You have the Village in Carlsbad, you have Encinitas, Long Beach, all the coastal neighborhoods, Vista Village, all those areas. If you're right there, that gets back to like 15 minutes to the beach. Mm-hmm. If you're within that, it's potentially walkable. But as far as walkable to like other areas, or just even walkability, there's sidewalks through most of San Diego. I know there's some other areas where, if you're coming from like a rural area or somewhere like that, you're probably used to just like 2-lane roads and, it's not too much going on. Here, most areas are going to have sidewalks until you do get to some of those rural. I'm going to call them rural. They're not like typical rural where you're going to find a ton of farmland. Some areas are kind of, but it's more just like spread out. So in like Rancho Santa Fe, you're not going to find a ton. In certain areas of Encinitas, eastern Encinitas, you're not going to find a ton. Up in certain parts of Vista, you're not going to find a ton. As you go down south, you're going to find different areas that are kind of spread out. As you go to the eastern area of San Diego as well, you will find like rural as you get out there too, where you're going to find open space. So there is a little bit of that too. Obviously not walkable out there, but most of the suburban areas, suburban neighborhoods are walkable to something. Even if you have like a community pool, community area, something like that, you will find that type of walkability. Now hopping into the schools right here in San Diego. If you're looking, that was one of our main criteria up there. People want, the yard, 3 to 4 bedrooms, and good schools. There's a lot of different areas that hits. A ton of different neighborhoods, ton of different areas have really good schools right here in San Diego. It's really diving into each school and figuring out what are you looking for in that school. Are you looking for certain language programs? Are you searching for certain teaching styles? Are you searching for how long have teachers been there? Are you looking for just schools that are newer? Because there's some areas that have like older schools. They just have been built a long time ago. They're not necessarily bad schools. They're just older schools. Like San Marcos, about 15, 20 years ago, that used to be San Marcos where all the schools were older. As they've had some master plan communities, as they've built out projects, as time has gone on, a lot of these schools, now there's some new build schools, but some of the older schools have been knocked down, rebuilt. The high school, Richland, a few different other schools throughout San Marcos. So you'll find that as well, where there may be turnover. You're gonna find some of those areas too, where some of the schools are new, some of the schools are old. And even if you're looking at areas and you really like the area, but you're like, oh, I'm looking at niche.com, I'm looking at great schools, I don't really like the ratings that they're having. First off, dive in a little bit more, maybe call the schools, maybe visit the schools, see if you do like them. If you don't like them, it's a little bit deeper than just looking at these online reviews. But there's also other options where you have private schools, you also have charter schools, which are part of the school district. A lot of times they are just like a lottery system to get in, and they offer different teaching styles. It's just a little bit different than your main public school that you're going to, that you're assigned to within there. Also, if you want to deep dive, There's something called the SARC report, which each school has it, and it's a accountability report card for all these schools. It's full, I think they do it every year, and you could just go through and it's got a ton of information on all these schools. Just go to their website and go to the little search bar and push it or type in SARC, or you scroll through and find it. Sometimes it's a little difficult to find, but you can find it for all of these different schools to give you a little bit more insight.
Another big question we get is weather. Obviously, as a whole, San Diego's weather is great. It's temperate, it's moderate. There's not a huge swing and changes, and we don't have really seasons. The leaves do fall on trees, but it's not really a season. So I mean, it's just a little bit more boring than a lot of places where we don't have that extreme heat, we don't have that extreme cold. It's always kind of 65 to 75, and we love it. I mean, that's the big reason we love living in San Diego.
It does get cold. Don't let Cassidy lie to you.
Well, he's also a wimp.
I am for sure. I'm gonna wear my jacket or something like all the time. Even during summer times, I'll rock like a hoodie or something. But once it gets down to like 67 degrees, then I'm like, I'm putting on a full, like maybe, I don't know, maybe my
It's probably something
jacket.
like that right now. It's probably like 60.
Yeah, my feet are freezing. It's cold. But this morning it was probably 50, 45 degrees. Like some mornings you will get where it does get pretty chilly. A lot of times, like you'll get days that are beautiful, that are warm. And then a lot of times, even during the summer times, it cools off during the summer, which is awesome. You'll kind of have some days like where I live in Encinitas, a few miles from the beach, doesn't get too hot, but you're gonna have certain days where it gets crazy hot. We don't have air conditioning. So it's like, okay, we have like a little portable thing you can hook up to our window, but it's not great. A lot of other homes, especially as you go east, you're gonna find air conditioning. You'll find that you need that too in certain days.
Yeah.
You turn yours on every now and again.
Yeah. And we just live in San Marcos, so not that far, 15-minute drive from where Chris lives, but it does warm up. And a lot of people that reach out to us, they're kind of looking for that temperate weather anyway, so they don't want that hot, which is kind of that breaking point is kind of maybe 25 to 30 minutes from the beach. You're still in that kind of temperate, 65, 75. When it gets hot, it gets into like 85, but we don't see 90 very often. But as soon as you kind of get into kind of a little more inland, Escondido, Poway, Scripps Ranch, as you're heading south, East County, you do get pretty hot during some of those summer months where it is getting into the 90s, hitting 100 every now and then. So just something to think about.
And then back to where it cools off at night. Those other summer nights that don't get super hot, it'll be 75, 80 during the day. It's beautiful, but it's going to cool off to 67 at night. So you can pop your windows open and it cools down your house. Like it's really not bad.
If you're coming out to visit, you may get lucky, you may get unlucky, especially if you're staying kind of in coastal areas. So earlier this week, beautiful weather, sunny in the morning, sunny all day, sunny until the sun goes down. But
beautiful days to go get drone shots. That's when Cassidy goes. When it's like these gorgeous days out.
I'm just waiting right now because the last 3 days actually, have been pretty socked in, either on the coast all day. I don't know if it ever cleared up yesterday. It didn't look like it from where we were.
A little bit.
Yeah.
About 3 miles in where I'm at, it was cleared up.
Yeah.
But I could see towards the coast, probably about a mile inland. Mm-hmm. It was definitely foggy still.
So it's just something to think about. That's a year-round thing. If you don't like fog, obviously being a little bit further from the coast is key. And there are months. We have June gloom is a thing here. We have May gray. So there are some of those kind of going into summer months where it does tend to be a little bit less sunny, but it's still good weather. It's not cold. It's just gray. Another question we get is, where are the touristy spots in San Diego? So some people want to be in that touristy area. Some people want to be outside of that. And there's not a definitive answer, except for San Diego as a tourist town. You don't feel it if you're not in, say, downtown San Diego, if you're not in Pacific Beach, if you're not in La Jolla, Carlsbad, some of like those Del Mar during the fair and during the track season. There's spots where you do kind of get that influx of tourism, but there are not a ton of hotels. There are not a ton of kind of that infrastructure for tourism in some of the other areas like San Marcos. Like as you go east, like in Poway or Claremont, there's not a ton of tourism in kind of the suburbs of San Diego. It's more in those coastal regions, that downtown area. Coronado is another big one for tourism. But it is like those coastal towns are going to have it. And even up and down the coast, there's some that have more and some that have less. Solana Beach doesn't have a ton. and it's just north of Del Mar, which has a little bit more. Encinitas doesn't have very much. And then Carlsbad has Legoland, which is a big part of the reason that there is a little bit more tourism kind of in that coastal section of Carlsbad.
One of the beautiful things about living here is that there's enough of these different touristy areas where you could be a tourist living right here. We'll go down, he goes down to Coronado, visits that every now and again. We'll go down there as well, or downtown, little staycation, maybe a little bit inland. We've been to the Welk Resort out in Escondido. So there's a bunch of these different areas too where you can become a tourist, like just go stay overnight, stay a night or two. It's really cool once getting back to all the different vibes. Like even living here our whole lives, we're exploring all these new areas and finding new places to check out pretty much every single month.
And another cool thing too about having some tourism spots like the San Diego Zoo, which also has the San Diego Safari Park out in Escondido. So those are things that a lot of families in San Diego have passes for. We've had them for years, and it's a lot of fun to go check out every now and then. Legoland is another one where you can get annual passes. So even living here, where a lot of people are coming to visit, to go to Legoland, you can live here and go there anytime you want.
Now, where is the best spot for activities? Because people reaching out have their own interests, what they're digging, why they're moving out here. Some of it might be jumping in the ocean. Maybe it's surfing. We've had clients move out and they're surfing more than I am now. Like back, growing up here, surfing for the last 20 plus years, used to surf a lot. Now I got kids, doing real estate all the time. It's a little bit harder to get out. So they'll move out. They're like, oh, you want, hey, let's go. I can't meet you. I'm sorry, I'm too busy. But whatever. If you're moving out for that, there's gonna be great spots. Biking, there's a bunch of good spots for that. Hiking, there's a bunch of good spots for that. It's really dependent. Like it's hard to go over it in just one precise question. But one way to get this question answered is, reaching out. As we mentioned, I'm Chris, this is Cassidy. We got a real estate crew right here in San Diego. And to learn a ton more about San Diego and break this down a lot, I dive into the map, the video popping up right now. Go check that out. And you're gonna get a ton more information on a lot of the things we just talked about.